This is Mike Hennessy, and on behalf of the team at decodinghim.com, I'd like to welcome you to today's conversation with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Dr. Jamie, thank you so much for being here with us today. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and your professional background?
Oh, hello. It's nice to be with you again, Mike. So I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and I'm known worldwide as Dr. Love through my website, AskDrLove.com, which was the world's first relationship advice site, and still is. I've been continuously operating since the beginning of the web. And I'm also known as Dr. Love through my radio show, Ask Dr. Love. And I write a column on Psychology Today Online called We Can Work It Out. All of my work is about helping people overcome the blocks to loving themselves and others better, and to really help people connect in the deepest ways possible. So I've written quite a few books: Make Up, Don't Break Up, Dr. Love's 5-Step Plan for Reconciling with Your Ex, Until Death Do Us Part Unless I Kill You First. And that book is going to be re-released in January by Hay House under the new title, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. So that's pretty much it.
It sounds like a very optimistic outlook toward relationships. It sounds to me as if you go in with the feeling that that relationships can be repaired and that people can live happy lives together.
Yes, that's what we're supposed to do. Our purpose on earth is to continually dissolve the walls and the blocks that stand between our hearts and loving each other better, to open our hearts and love more. And we can always improve and resolve the blocks to loving better.
One of the books you mentioned that you've written is Make Up, Don't Break Up. Why did you write that book, and who is the book specifically aimed at?
Right. Because I've been doing this for 30 years, and people will come to me all the time having broken up, and they will think, well, I guess we broke up because we weren't right for each other, when in fact they're perfectly compatible, but they don't know how to communicate, because when you fall in love with someone, obviously we get together because we're madly in love. It's not love that is the issue. It's that we don't know how to handle the inevitable conflicts that arise in relationships, and the communication problems and the old scars that we bring in from childhood cause a big, big, horrible mess, and then we break up. But we're actually still deeply, deeply compatible and love each other. So my work is to help you navigate your way out of it and come back to the love that you found in the beginning. If you loved each other once, it's absolutely not destroyed. In many cases, you can just resurrect the original love.
In your experience, and I think you've hinted at this pretty clearly in that first answer, what is the most common reason for couples breaking up? I suspect it's got something to do with the C word, communication, a tricky one, one we think we understand, but I'm not really sure we always do.
Well, the thing is, one of the things I say to couples is that relationships fall apart because it's really hard to manage what I call the inevitable regression that occurs in relationships. And what I mean by that is, within about 18 to 24 months, all of us start to see our partners as the parents that we had trouble with. And we literally regress back to childhood. We don't know it's happening, but we start to see our partner and hear our partner as the parent we had trouble with. And then in no time, we hate their guts, because they are bringing up all the old feelings. Now, when you have those feelings, if you don't realize that your feelings are coming from before, what do? You often turn your cannons directly at the partner, aim all that old hatred at the partner, and then, of course, you don't communicate in a way that's constructive, and the relationship just falls to pieces under the weight of this regression.
I've seen it happen in real life, and I've seen it happen in dramas or even comedies, where even the most together person, the person who's got it all together, who's leading a successful adult life, can be turned into just a gibbering heap of mush by a parent. All it takes is one word, yeah.
Even know, Mike, that this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. A husband and wife or a couple are out to dinner, and he keeps checking his wristwatch because he is checking his watch to see when it's time to feed the meter. But the wife, who was always so hurt and rejected by her father, who never had time for her, blows a gasket without even realizing it. She's associating back to all the times her father couldn't wait to get rid of her and ditch her. I call that the emotional lake effect, because our brains are constantly comparing the present day event with the past wounds that we suffer, just like, the actual lake effect where a storm gathers moisture and force as it sweeps across the Great Lakes. Well, our unconsciouses do the same thing. We're dipping into the reservoir of our unconscious, constantly comparing the things that our partners say and do with the wounds we suffered as kids, and without knowing it, we're dredging up all the old pain and hurt from when we were young, and then we turn all that rage onto our partner, and she just loses it on the guy. Wow, you want to leave? Well, go to hell. And he's just, what did I do? I just was checking to see when to feed the meter. So you have to become aware of your old scars, and you have to heal them. That's what I teach people how to do in my method all the time, because once you heal your old scars, everything cools down. And so many fights just vaporize as a result of that, and then you avoid a breakup.
That's intriguing. I'd like to explore that for just a moment, because that's an interesting idea and it makes perfect sense. So how do you actually get somebody to recognize this? Because we're all driven by things that we don't really understand or know about.
Right.
I think that's pretty much an accepted thing in the world of psychology and counseling. But how do you get somebody to really recognize this, accept it, and then deal with it?
That's great. It's a great question, because like what you're saying is, how can I be aware of it if it's in my unconscious? Because I'm only dredging up feeling memories, but I haven't made the link up. So here's what you want to do. I have a little 5-step plan that I call, it's how you do it. The first is you hold your horses. If you're having a really strong reaction, this is your clue that old scars from childhood are afoot. You have a really strong reaction. It seems disproportionate to the current offense, and you can't seem to shake it. Something's afoot from childhood. So hold your horses. Step 2, you take a step back in time. And then in step 3, you take a hard look at reality. You compare what's happening now with what you suffered as a kid, and you start asking yourself. You're sort of deep sea diving, and you're saying, wait a minute, how am I feeling now? What's happening now? What does that remind me of that happened to me as a kid, right? Now in step 4, you check out your suspicions. So you would say, listen, are you really looking to ditch me? And then you would say, no, of course, I'm enjoying my time with you. I just want to check the meter. And then you smooth all your ruffled feathers. That's step 5. And that's how you steer your way out of it. And then the thing is, once you are making that link up to your old scars, now you use the relationship as a healing agent, so that instead of turning your cannons and transferring all your rage on your partner, you can say to your partner, oh my gosh, you know what? That reminded me of when my dad did X, Y, and Z to me. And then your partner becomes an empathic healing, supportive agent for you. Oh, let's talk about it. Now you're working together to help each other heal the old scars, cooling the climate, preventing breakup.
And I don't think there's anybody among us who would not say, if that really bothers you, and I don't mean to bother you, but I'd be more than happy to stop doing that, or find a way that we can do it so that it doesn't irritate you.
But even if you can't stop it, first and foremost, let's be aware of what's happening, what it's reminding you of, what wound I'm awakening. And when you help me to understand what wound I'm awakening, and I love you and I have empathy for you, that's the greatest motivator for me to become conscious and change what I'm doing. Much more of a motivator than, you're always doing this and you're always doing that. Well, now I'm attacked. I'm not feeling empathic. I just feel like defending myself and defending what I did.
It's interesting, because what you're talking about here is the person going to you for counseling and helping themselves, but also it sounds like helping their partner in the process.
We're here to be healing agents for each other, and we were brought together for a reason. That's why I always say to people, breaking up is the last option, because the reason you were drawn to each other in the first place is because you knew deep down that there was a fit there, that you had a divine fit that was going to help, that you're both made to help each other to heal. You were instantly attracted because, yes, you do remind me of my father. Now I have a chance to be a better father to you, to give you what you didn't get from your father, and vice versa. It's a real divine opportunity to use the relationship to help each other heal.
So let's back up just a moment here and say that a woman comes to you and tells you that they think their partner is going to break up with them. And
right.
They don't know how to approach this or what to do about it. It's kind of like seeing the train wreck coming, but not
right.
being able to stop it. So how do you help somebody maybe slow things down a bit, get a grip, and really say, okay, we're going to deal with this situation in a positive way and maybe generate a positive outcome?
Normally, the natural reaction when you think somebody's going to ditch you is to cling and clutch and beg and plead and try to convince. Now, of course, all of these things drive the person farther and farther away from you because the person has already decided to leave. The person's already mad at you. You're already on thin ice. So the last thing you want to do at that moment is to make these mistakes that I'm describing because you will drive the person away for good. So I had a couple that came to me, and she was doing that thing with the begging and the pleading and the convincing, and he just got more and more annoyed. So the first thing I told her is what I will say to your listeners: back up and stop pushing. As much as you want the person, it's paradoxical. By backing up and letting go and not pushing, you have a much better chance of getting your ex back. And then, of course, I have a 5-step plan for exactly what we're going to do to get your ex back. So the only one thing you want to do at this moment is to just simply leave a text or a voicemail. Don't speak personally because you don't want to get into a conversation and you don't want to fall into the old fight pattern. You leave a message, an email, or a text just saying, I've been thinking about why you want to leave, and I'm starting to get some ideas about why you were so unhappy in the relationship, and I just wanted you to know that. See? That's already showing you're on the path to being different. You're looking at yourself. You're looking at the other person. You have empathy for your partner, and I'm not going to push you. That's the first thing you do. That sets the stage for the makeup, okay?
Mm-hmm. And now let's say the shoe does drop and the partner does break up. What are the do's and don'ts regarding how to react when they hear the news? And I kind of think that the 5-step plan that you've referred to may come into effect here. So let's go ahead and lay things out.
The first thing you're going to be doing is exactly what I said, whether the person is threatening to leave or has left. I'm starting to get an idea. Now, if the person hasn't left yet, then there's still a dialogue going on. You'd want to be asking the person, what is it that I'm doing that's not working for you, or what have I done that didn't work for you? So you understand that if someone's leaving, the person's discontent. So you want to know what your role was in the discontent. And not blaming the other person or accusing the other person, but being humble and saying, what am I doing that's making you unhappy? Now, in most cases, if you just do that, you're going to prevent a breakup. But if the person's already gone, then you do what I said, the text, voicemail, or email, where you just say, I'm starting to get an idea about how unhappy you were, and I'm really reflecting on it, and I see why you felt you had to go. And that's it. Okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to go into what I call step 2. And step 2 is you need to understand why your relationship derailed in the first place. And here you have to understand what I call the essential truth about all relationships. We need relationship essential nutrients for a relationship to survive. And what do I mean by that? Well, the body needs essential nutrients to survive and thrive. Well, so does a relationship, right? And if you're not feeding each other these essential nutrients, the relationship will die. So the first thing you need to understand when you're stepping back is, wow, what did I do to starve my partner of what he needed? And what men need, what are the essential relationship nutrients for men? Different than for women. Men need 2 things. They need admiration and they need appreciation. Why? Because that's the male gender role. Men are all about doing and action and performing and pleasing and making their partners happy. So when relationships fall apart for men, it's because they're feeling nagged at and bitched at and complained at, and they've lost their feeling of admiration and appreciation. And women make that terrible mistake with men. They bitch at them and complain and accuse them till the guy really will go looking for another woman, not usually for sex, but a new relationship, he'll feel admired and appreciated. And then I also go on to explain what the essential nutrients are for women because they're different from men. And then after you understand that, you know what you need to feed your partner to make your partner want to come back and stay for a lifetime. So that's absolutely the first step, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, the second step is you have to give the space that we were talking about, because there's no reconciliation possible until the dust settles. People make terrible mistakes when they're in the throes of a broken heart. They start with the dogging, the chasing, the stalking, the calling, and you are at a critical point here where if you do that, you will drive your ex away for good, because you have to remember that you're on shaky ground. Your ex left because he or she wasn't happy with you, so you make these mistakes, the ex is not coming back. So you need to back off now, and the rest of my program, the Make Up, Don't Break Up program, consists of what you need to do to ready yourself to come back to your ex in a much more enlightened and a healed way, so that this time around we don't make the same mistakes we made the last time around, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're in this back off phase, you're going to do the third step, which is raise what I call your personal net worth. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about the relationship essential nutrients. Well, now we're going to be feeding you your personal essential nutrients, what you need to heal your body, your mind, and your soul from the injury you suffered from the breakup, because the healing steps that I outline in this step are just going to really bring you back to the desirable and healthy person that your partner fell in love with, which is going to really improve your chances of reconciling with your ex. And then the next thing you're going to do in step 4 is what I call taking stock. Now, in this step, you're going to be feeling better. You're less freaked out. You know you are okay. You are desirable. You can live without your partner if need be. So now you're going to take stock in the relationship. You're going to look at your role in the relationship, your old scars, what you brought to the table that made the relationship unravel. You're going to look at your ex's role in the problems. I give you little accompanying workbooks and tests that go with this program so that you have step-by-step what you need to evaluate what went wrong from his end, from your end. I'm going to help you look at your relationship IQ to see if you really know everything you need to know about how to handle a relationship. I'm going to have you assess your compatibility just to make sure that the two of you are truly right for each other, because why go to all this trouble to reconcile if you're truly not right for each other? But then when you find out that you really are, then we're going to go to the last step, because you have to have all that knowledge under your belt before you do the reconciliation. Because a lot of, ex-back programs out there will tell you, oh, don't even worry about what went wrong, just get back together, which is so ill-guided, because what broke before will break again, and relationships are like rubber bands, They can only be stretched so far before they snap, and then you can't put them back together again. So my method is about, we're going to bring you back, but stronger than ever, so you don't break up again, and your relationship is way healthier than it ever was. So now you know, through this taking stock phase, exactly what went wrong, and what really was troublesome for your partner, what you did that was troublesome. You're going to hold all this in the back of your mind, because you're going to need it for the makeup phase. And then the last phase, obviously, is the makeup phase. And here is where you're going to actually contact your ex and ask to have a meeting. And then I lay out for you step by step how long the meeting should be, what to say, what not to say, where to meet. And basically what you're doing in the makeup phase is you're rekindling all the positive feelings that brought you together, and you are handling the roadblocks that are going to come up, because there's all kinds of roadblocks, well, how do I know you've changed, and how do I know that you won't be like you were, and how do I know we won't get back into the same stuff? And I help you know what to say and how to deal with that, and just guide you through to the finish line. And it's a beautiful thing, because the love that you have for each other isn't gone in most cases. It's just sort of buried under a pile of ashes, of resentment and burning, smoldering resentment. So the final makeup, I show you how to get past all of that and just rekindle the love that brought you together. And then, of course, you go on to use the communication methods that I advise you to follow, and heal the old scars and your works in progress, so that you never fall back to that place again. And, for most people, just really listening to each other, truly listening non-defensively, listening with the ears of your heart is enough to solve most conflicts. So that's pretty much an overview of how we're going to do it.
Now, in your book, not only do you talk about the 5 steps, but you also talk about 3 things that just have to happen if you're going to get that ex back. What are those 3 points that if this doesn't happen, it's not going to work?
Well, the one thing is really you've got to become clear on your old scars and be working on healing them, because otherwise these are landmines you're going to just keep falling on over and over again, right? You're going to have to also feel differently about yourself, because if you approach your ex with the desperate, hungry, needy attitude, you're never going to get back together, because it's just repulsive. Because don't forget, we're all hardwired to want to partner up with people who are the most desirable. This is a survival of the species imperative. We say men want women who are going to be healthy, or are going to help us produce the healthiest offspring. So we're going to choose women that are very desirable, highly sought after. So a man has to feel that, and so does a woman. You have to feel he's highly desirable and sought after, or else I don't want you. You become ew, to me. So if you're begging and pleading and desperate and all that stuff, you're very undesirable. So you've got to heal yourself and feel really healthy and strong. That will raise your attractiveness, which will magnetize your ex back to you. And then the third thing is you have to be aware of what went on for your ex. You really have to know why your ex was unhappy with you and be able to take responsibility for your role in not satisfying your ex's need. Now, this is like a really touchy point. Like a lot of times when somebody cheated on you and then leaves, the natural reaction of the cheatee is, you were wrong, you shouldn't have done it. Well, obviously, that wasn't the right way to handle your relationship problems. But the fact is, if you stay stuck in the finger-pointing mode of, you shouldn't have done this to me, and, you better apologize, and you blame the person who cheated and left, you are missing the opportunity to really understand the underlying reason of why the person did it. Because people don't go out and cheat unless something was dreadfully wrong. Those relationship essential nutrients were not being fed to the partner in the way that he needed. The old scars were out of hand. So if you are able to say, listen, I want to know what I did to drive you away, pushed you, or what I did to push you into somebody else's arms. If you have the courage to ask that, you will resurrect and repair the relationship.
So let's make something clear here, because one of the things that I think could happen if somebody kind of caught some of this conversation a little bit out of context, they might feel like, well, she's blaming me. I'm the one who was wrong. This wasn't my doing. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who was hurt. It's not up to me to fix everything. Why, I'm the victim here. And how do you, which to me is a perfectly understandable thing. How do you put that into the proper context for your patients?
People have to realize that I'm not saying it's right to cheat. I'm not saying it's right to cheat and hit the road. It's not that I'm passing judgment on it. What I'm saying is, if you want to repair the relationship, then you have to get past playing the victim, and you have to be willing to say, listen, I'm not saying what my partner did was right, but obviously something was missing for him or her, or else he wouldn't have gone out and looked for it elsewhere. And if I can be big enough to look at my part in whatever it was I did to dissatisfy him, I'm not saying he shouldn't have come and talked to me, or she shouldn't have talked to me. I'm not saying that. But the fact is, if I stay stuck in playing the victim and pointing the finger, I can feel righteous, but I will also be broken up permanently. That's all.
How important is it to have a period of no contact after a breakup? And what are the do's and don'ts during that period? And is there some way where you can say, okay, I've hit this point where it's okay to reassume contact?
You have to know that when you're following my 5-step program, you will know how healed you feel. If you start to feel like, oh, I can't live without, if you're still feeling this way, I can't live without the person, oh, I can't function, you're not ready. It's a paradoxical thing. You have to be to a place in your own healing where you actually feel, I can live without you. Then you're ready to reapproach. Because you're not going to be conveying that hungry, desperate vibe that drives the other person away. Plus, you're going to be the kind of strong, independent, attractive person that he or she fell in love with. So you have to go by how you feel. If you're feeling strong, if you're actually feeling, I could function now without you. I want you in my life, but I can live without you. Now you're on the solid footing. You're ready to make the approach. So it's not about, follow so many calendar days. It's about how long you need to feel okay in your own skin.
Here's a common question that we get from many of our women subscribers. They want to know if they should stay friends with their ex. Can you help with your thoughts on that?
The thing is, I'm not big on rules. If it feels like the friendship is progressive, so that you are talking and the both of you are engaging and you're having honest conversations and it feels like your intimacy is developing, and this is what you're doing to build a bridge back to resuming your relationship, you know how that feels. That's different than, I'm just here degrading myself, being his friend and doing his laundry while he's out having sex with someone else. Well, obviously, that is not raising your attractiveness power. That is not raising your personal net worth. That's degrading you in your eyes, in your own eyes and in his eyes. So you have to know what the quality is of the relationship and the friendship. You'll know how it feels.
Here's another common question, and this is one that really kind of causes my antenna to twitch a little bit. We often hear from women who agree to go into what's called today a friend with benefits arrangement. And we often hear that from our women subscribers that they agree because they hope they can be able to win their ex back eventually, but then they find themselves in a dead-end relationship.
Right,
what are your thoughts when you hear that term come up?
Right. So women who do this are thinking their pussy is like a power tool, and it's a big mistake, because the thing is, you don't want to use your sexual parts as leverage in this way. It's degrading to yourself. It's treating you like an object. Well, I think if I give him sex, then he'll love me. That is not a fact. We know for a fact men are much more able to compartmentalize than women. We hear stories all the time of women who have sex with men thinking they have a relationship only to find out he was just having sex with her. And then when the right woman comes along, he dumps her. So men can separate sex from a relationship and even separate it from love. So if you are having sex in this way, hoping that in some way this is going to forge the relationship again, it's a mistake. That when you think about what sex means, the word to consummate a relationship means to bring to completion or fruition. So just like you're starting a relationship, and you don't just start a relationship with the cart before the horse, you let sex become a culmination and a bringing to fruition in the beginning. It would be the same now in your reconciliation, that you build the relationship back. And when you both feel like the relationship is there and you want to really resume your relationship and it feels natural and right, you consummate physically. You don't use sex as a tool or a ploy, because it will backfire on you.
Here's another one that we get along kind of the same lines, where our subscribers say, I would like to get back with my ex. Should I date others just to make him jealous in order to get him back? Okay, and what do you think of that one?
Here we're doing game playing. Game playing can be smelled a mile away. I don't believe in any game playing. It's ridiculous. What I'm talking about, when I talk about raising your personal net worth, you feel lovable. You make love with everybody who passes. You smile. You realize that you're attractive to other people. This isn't a game. You feel it and you know it. You're not doing it to make the other person jealous. You're doing it just because you are living your life. And if you are separated and you wish to go out and date, you do it. And you're not doing it so that you can send him or your partner a message saying, are you jealous? Are you jealous? You're living your life. You are able to live separately. You would like your ex back, but you are moving on. This is what you choose to do. Not out of a game, but your ex will know that you are desirable. You won't have to say a word. It'll exude non-verbally out of you, that feeling of, yes, I'm desirable. I know I am. I get the feedback from others, and you don't have to play any games. You just feel good about yourself, and that radiates out. Makes you attractive.
And just as a personal note here, it sounds like, boy, what would you say that kind of game plan can be smelled a mile away. Probably the man you're dating may suspect it as well, and that's certainly not something that would strike me as a very pleasant revelation for a man who someone might be dating if they're trying to win back an ex just out of jealousy.
But that's awful, because now we're going. This is the opposite of what we're talking about really having integrity and being genuine and true. You're using another person as an object. This is not evolved behavior. We don't want to do this,
On the other hand, a number of our women subscribers say they get jealous and worried when they learn that their ex is dating other women. So how do you help women deal with this revelation when it comes up?
Well, again, we're back to you can feel whatever you want to feel, but you don't want to go into action and retaliate. Well, I'm going to post on Facebook false pictures, all this game playing. No. Feel it. That's fine. But the thing is, you must develop that sense of internal strength that knows, look, I'm okay without him. I don't like it. I am jealous, but I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to move on spiritually. I'm going to engage in charitable operations. I'm going to do hobbies. I'm going to develop myself in areas that I never did before. I'm going to have a life that is apart and separate from him. And I have a life with meaning. I can live without him. So then you don't have a lot of energy to be jealous because you're moving on. And you are opening up yourself to other people and meeting other people. And the possibility that someone else might come into your life, that is a possibility too. All the while holding that duality of, but I really would like my ex back. It's kind of being mature enough to hold everything all at once.
Would you recommend getting back with an ex? And I know you've hinted at this earlier on, when the ex cheated, and that was the reason for the breakup. And that one is such a volatile question and such a terribly emotional thing to have happen. How do you help somebody assess whether that damage has been repaired to the point where they can get back together?
Again, I see cheating as a symptom. And I know it's an awful violation to be cheated on, and we feel very victimized and wronged. So you have to assess everything in a case-by-case way. So, if you've got somebody who's a player who has some kind of pathological inability, right, to be intimate or be faithful, and this is a different story than we had relationship problems, and my partner didn't speak to me and went out and looked elsewhere for his relationship essential nutrients to be fed. If you're able to understand what happened and the partner is taking ownership for his part in the cheating, I shouldn't have done this, I should have talked to you, and you get a sense that the person has remorse and is willing to grow with you and look at himself and talk to you and communicate with you and own his part, and he sees that you are also working to change yourself, own your part, and eliminate all those fight traps that I talk about in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. And you judge it based upon what's going on in the interaction, right? Because obviously you're not just going to jump right in. You're going to be scared that he's going to cheat on you again. So it has to be within the context of where are we? What are we talking about? How do I understand this happening? Is he taking responsibility? Does he commit to speaking to me the next time I say or do something that disappoints him? You're going to create a new relationship on a much more solid foundation, where cheating becomes a thing of the past.
There are two extremes that I can see in dealing with a situation. One is where everybody involved just tries to pretend that it didn't happen and just moves on. And then the other extreme, of course, is never letting the cheating ex ever live it down. And both of those are natural. I can understand perfectly how somebody might decide to go either way on that, or even just be driven to deal with a situation that way. But it strikes me that there has to be a better middle road for helping partners put that safely in the past without the burden of trying to pretend that something didn't happen.
Well, the only way that you can move past something is to really feel truly heard and understood. When we keep coming back to something over and over again, it's a sign we've been traumatized and that we haven't heard what we need to hear to feel in peace. So a lot of times when women are cheated on, you'll hear them going back over and over again, accusing the guy, and then of course he gets defensive and angry and justifying, and so she doesn't hear what she needs to hear, and then she brings it up again. So if we can help the guy to really sit and hold her heart, really understand her pain. See, it's both of you at the same time. It's not about accusing. It's, again, we're here to really be healing agents for each other. So the way it would look is he's holding her, and she's talking not with accusation, but I'm hurt, I'm scared. Whatever I'm feeling, she's saying it. And he's listening, and he's understanding, and he's accepting responsibility. And if he does this from his heart, she will be able to move on. And then at the same time, she's listening to him. And he's saying, listen, I know it was awful, but I have to say that, you know, whenever I would come home late and you would scream and yell at me and call me names, it just made me so disgusted. I was pulling away from you, and then I started to feel like, well, this woman at work was making me feel big and important, and I was weak, and I succumbed to her patting me on the back, right? So you see, they're both taking responsibility and listening and understanding. This is how we move forward.
Now, on the other hand, here's a really tough one, because in some ways it might be easier to deal with a partner cheating than with yourself cheating. If one of our subscribers says, I got caught cheating and that's the reason why our relationship broke up.
Right.
How do you help them deal with that? And what do you do to help them maybe regain the hope that there is a possibility of getting their ex back?
Right. So when you have done the cheating, you have to be willing to do a lot of fence mending, right? You have to be willing to say, listen, I'm not going to defend myself. I'm just going to listen to you. I'm going to understand you. Tell me whatever you want to say, and I'm going to do my best to understand how I have made you feel. And then you're just listening in a very humble way, repeating back what you heard, accepting responsibility, and doing it until your partner feels better. Then, after your partner feels better, eventually we're going to have to switch to the partner is going to have to hear, now listen, we have to talk about what you were doing that made me so unhappy, that pushed me out the door. Now, if the partner is not willing or able to look at that, you don't have a relationship that's workable or repairable, because obviously there's always the cheater and then there's the cheatee, but the cheatee always has a hand in helping the cheater to cheat. It's a very unpopular position, but it is true.
Mm-hmm. So the idea that there is one clear victim and one clear perpetrator is not necessarily the way it works, right?
It's not, no. So, I mean, unless we're dealing with somebody who's just like I had a case, I talk about this until death do us part. There was this case of a man who kept on cheating on his wife, and it happened when she was pregnant with their first child. And you know, at first we would think, well, maybe she was neglecting him, or she didn't have sex with him anymore, or she wasn't attracted to him, or they were fighting. None of these things. And the fact was, he finally remembered that the day that he started cheating, he saw her wearing a yellow dress, and he had an unconscious association to his mom when he was a little boy, and she was pregnant wearing a yellow dress, and somehow in his brain he started to see his wife as his mother, and this turned him off, and he freaked out, and he just started cheating. So in that case, it was his own thing causing the cheating. It wasn't that the wife was involved in provoking him or pushing him out the door, but that's an unusual situation. It's always, the rule of thumb is, it takes two to tango. Got to look at your part. Got to look at your part. Because playing the victim, I see it so much. People come into my office or they write to me on my website. I've seen this for 30 years. It's all him. I'm innocent. Well, you can take that position and play the victim. You're going to lose your relationship. And very often, too, we're holding on to the victim attitude because we're really replaying an older scar from when we were kids where we felt victimized and wronged. And now it's just sort of recycling in our relationship. So.
Mm-hmm. And so it's very easy to get into these patterns and very difficult to recognize them, very difficult to get out of them. And I think that's that may be redundant because I think we've been hitting on that all through this conversation. But I don't think there's anything wrong with re-emphasizing that there's going to be a lot of hard work involved in repairing a relationship. And also, I think it's safe to say, and tell me if you agree with this and if not, tell me why, that the person who recognizes that there is a problem may bear a little more responsibility to fix that problem. Does that make sense?
See, I don't tend to view things in the black and white terms because all I can say is that it's sort of everything. Yes, I'll look at my part, and yes, this is my problem, and you look at your part, and it's never just all you or all me, because as we're all evolving and growing emotionally, we're moving away from the black, white, good, bad, all or nothing way of thinking. That's a kind of younger brain way of thinking. You know, when we're little kids, you know, you're a poopy head, you're all bad, you know, the good witch, the bad witch. But as we evolve spiritually and emotionally, we realize things aren't like that. It never is so black and white. So, but I mean, if there are always exceptions, so I'm not even going to say that in black and white terms, like the example I gave a few minutes ago about the guy who had that problem and he was being unfaithful because of his own problem. So you take everything on a case-by-case basis, and you're just always striving to be as humble as you can be and as open as you can be and listening and understanding the other person. And if you're doing it and the other person is doing it, you have a relationship that's working.
How long should a period of no contact, say a woman who's cheated and she wants to make up, and they're in a period of no contact, how will they know that it's time to end that period of no contact? Is there a specific time on the calendar, or is there it's an emotional?
Can't go by the calendar, but you go by your gut instinct. You know, maybe you get a vibe, you know, you've seen your ex around, you get a feeling that this would be a good time. Maybe you wait a month. A month would be a minimum, and then you do the reach out. And when you do the reach out has got to be from the perspective of completely owning what you did. Listen, I know I hurt you. You can send, you know, the voicemail, the email, the text. I know I hurt you. And I've been doing a lot of self-work in this last month. I've been doing Dr. Love's 5-step, you know, plan, and I've been really looking at myself. And I have a much stronger sense of where I went wrong with you in this relationship. And I know how much I hurt you by what I did, and I'm not asking you to forgive me. This is a biggie. I just want you to be able to talk to me and just share with me how you feel about how I let you down and hurt you. And I'm not going to be defensive. I will listen non-defensively. I won't try to talk you out of how you feel. I won't twist your arm. But I want you to be able to confront me and tell me the truth. Now, who wouldn't be willing to accept his day in court, you know? You're giving me a chance to get on the stand, tell my testimony, and a person will take that olive branch you're offering.
Well, it would sound to me like a person who is serious about getting a relationship back together. If a person doesn't accept that olive branch, I guess that would really tell you everything you need to know, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would tell you that the person is still too hurt and mad, and you can still wait a bit and try again, you know? Again. If you but you're continuing your own growth. You're continuing to raise your own personal net worth at all times. You're healing. You're living your life, but you still love your ex. Try again. Try again. You know?
So let's assume that the ex has agreed to meet. Boy, I can see that as just that one could be tricky. I can see a lot of. I can see the possibility for wonderful things happening. I can also see the possibility of disaster. What do you recommend for that first meeting where so much is on the line and there's so much emotional volatility in play?
All right, so the biggest thing about the first meeting is you want to recreate a positive feeling. Because when we have a positive feeling, you want to have more of the same. So during that first meeting, you certainly do not want to be bringing up, you know, dredging up the old issues, pulling skeletons out of the closet. You want it to be a very short and positive experience. And if your ex starts bringing up old stuff, say, listen, I really, really want to talk about it. It's really important, but I would just like to enjoy your company, and we could talk about that at some future time so that you get some positive feeling under your belt, which will make your ex want to do more of the same. So that's very, very important.
Yeah, the old saying was that Rome wasn't built in a day, neither was the Great Wall of China. A relationship that's gone on the rocks, I would say, it's not possible to reconstruct everything in one meeting. So why would you really try if you look at it from a distance?
Exactly. And, and think about how the relationship began. It didn't just happen overnight. And the thing is, you do have an edge over strangers because you have history with your ex. There's a natural tendency to want to return to what is familiar and what we know. We formed a bond. I know you. I'm comfortable with you. You're kind of cozy like a well-worn slipper. So nobody else is going to be able to really compete with that familiarity and comfort that we have. So you've got that going for you. And then you also have really, really great early experiences. If you could do a first date that kind of is very reminiscent of something you did in the beginning that you both loved. So it's very positive, great experience that touches your emotions and your senses. You're going to be really on strong footing. And then you just deflect any serious discussion.
So, of course, there's going to be a lot of push and pull in any relationship, and in trying to get back onto steadier ground and rebuilding a relationship. Obviously, it seems obvious to me. Almost doesn't even need to be said that you're going to want to build it on a firmer relationship. And how do you? If a relationship has gone down the drain, and now you want to rebuild it, how can our subscribers look at the possibility of rebuilding on a firmer footing and a better foundation?
So that's where I said, once you use my 5-step method and you've reconciled, okay, and you have a good sense that you're compatible, and you've done those little workbooks that I include with the book that help you know your old scars, his old scars, you take it to the next level. So you really, really need to use my book, Till Death Do Us Part, Unless I Kill You First, which is going to be, as I said, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. Hay House will be releasing that in January. That book is your Bible. It is going to immunize you against future fights. It's going to help you. There's a section in the book where I actually show you, I list every kind of fight that couples have, and then I trace that fight down to its original old scar. So, like, for example, if we're fighting about, you don't give me enough money, well, that really is symbolic of, well, you don't love me enough. And then you trace that down to, my father didn't love me enough, my mother didn't love me enough. So we work together to identify what are those sticking points that we had in our relationship, those constant recycled arguments, trace them back to the old scars, and then use the steps that I outline in the book to help each other heal the old scars so that you do not hit those roadblocks again this time around. And then you learn how to communicate about your issues in a way that's constructive and listen, because 90% of all your conflicts can be headed off by truly listening with the ears of your heart. And then you head off fights and you resolve fights that way so that you have a rock-solid relationship from this point forward. You'll actually be stronger than you were before the breakup.
Now, you've mentioned your books, and I'd like you to, in these last few minutes that we have here, I want you to mention those books again, and I love the titles. By the way, they're so provocative and ear-catching that quite frankly, make me want to pick them up and read them. And I hope our listeners feel that way too. But so go ahead and recount your books, and also, if you would, if you have any other books or experts that you refer to occasionally, and if somebody wants maybe a broader approach and would like to hear some other advice from people that you trust and regard well in this industry.
The good thing, just remember Dr. Love or AskDrLove.com, because there's so much there. I have all the advice questions and answers that I've answered since the beginning of the web. You can search them all for free on my website. There it is. So then check out my radio show, which you can access through my website, Ask Dr. Love Radio, because I'm always bringing on lots of, wonderful guests, and you can hear different perspectives there through the guests that I interview as well. And, I by the way, well, I'll tell you the names of the books, but I did create a special offer just for your listeners.
Oh, great. I can't wait. Let's hear it.
What you do is you go to makeupdon'tbreakup.us, like makeupdon'tbreakup.us, us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And / decoding him. That's a special page just for your listeners. And just put your email address in there, and you will receive a little 18-page PDF booklet that explains, the essence of what you got to do to get your ex back. Outlines, right? So I did that just for you guys, and you'll get it through that makeupdon'tbreakup.us / decoding him, just for your listeners. And then in terms of my other books, as I said, Hay House just bought 2 of my books, which was really wonderful. So in January, we're going to have Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, Dr. Love's 10 Simple Steps for cooling conflict and rekindling your relationship. And we have Makeup Don't Break Up, which we're talking about today. Until Death Do Us Part, Unless I Kill You First. That is going to be Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. Essentially, it's a new republication of the book through Hay House.
Well, I kind of like the original title better, but unfortunately, the whims of the publisher have to be obeyed sometimes, I'm sure.
I know, but everybody says that because my humor, I have a kind of wild, out there sense of humor, like to Death Do Us Part, Unless I Kill You First. That's me. But everybody says you got to go for a more positive title in the self-help world because you don't want to be talking about death. But then again, when we're really pissed off at our partners and our exes, we do want to wring their necks.
Well, it certainly strikes a chord with me, and I can't believe that it wouldn't strike a chord with anybody who's ever been involved in a relationship. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Dr. Jamie. Dr. Love, as it were. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You're a wonderful interviewer. It was wonderful talking to you, Mike.
And this is Mike Hennessy, and on behalf of the team at decodinghim.com, I'd like to thank you for listening and wish you the very best in your relationships. To listen to other interviews from our experts, please visit decodinghim.com.